Okay, remember that they're changing my voice. So when I talk about the Royal African Falcon, top martial arts order, the government likes to give me a hard time. And so I decided to make a paper about on the issue of race and the spectrum of African greatness. Before I start this paper, I'd like to point out that if you were to ask a Hawaiian person at some kind of Hawaiian event and they're singing, they're dancing, or they're doing whatever they do, and you were to ask them, do you think that your race is superior? It's a pretty tricky question, right? And so that's how this paper starts. My first point. When one asks someone if they think that their race is superior, it is actually more of a complicated question than society often pretends that it is. To not be precise enough and to not tell the pure truth is a problem. Okay? That issue is more complicated and important than you think that it is. It has to do with who you are, how society should be structured, whether you're being honest about things that matter most, or whether you're some kind of politically correct fool. It has to do with a lot of things. What scale do you use? Do you use a universal scale or a scale of white supremacy? Do you think that being evil makes someone superior? Is a mad scientist superior to a nice, humble person? It is a very important and complicated question. We're going to get to the answer in this paper together. And you should already know what I'm going to say. If you've been watching my videos, you should already know in terms of what I think the answer is. You should already know what I think the answer is. But we'll get to it. Imagine if when Michael Jordan was playing basketball, that he only made $100,000 a year. Right? I'm assuming he made millions, right, during his prime. And he started to argue that he should make well over 10 times that instead. That instead of making $100,000 a year, he should make $1 million a year, at least. If someone said to him, "What, you think your race is superior or something? Black people are already disproportionately represented in the basketball stars. What are you trying to increase your social power? You are already a celebrity." Who would be right? Would Michael Jordan be right to say, "I should be getting paid more"? Okay. Or would they be right to say, "Well, you're already a celebrity"? Now, if we were talking about, the fact that he's getting paid more than a doctor, and asked ourselves, is that really fair? Okay. That's one thing, right? Why should it cost so much to, say, go to a game? Why should the people who are making lots of money on basketball make that much? There's a lot of interesting questions that are asked here. But if we take this question at face value, okay, is it right for them to say, no, you shouldn't make more than $100,000 a year as a star basketball player because you're black, and people already look up to them to a large degree because of rappers and basketball stars and football players, what have you. They're already disproportionately celebrities, and celebrities to really impress upon people that they're important or they're cool or whatever. So again, I know it's a little tricky here. So let's read it again here. Imagine if when Michael Jordan was playing basketball, that he only made $100,000 a year in his prime, and he started to argue that he should make well over 10 times that instead. If someone said to him, "What, you think your race is superior or something? Black people already are disproportionately represented in the basketball stars. What, are you trying to increase your social power? You are already a celebrity." Who would be right? Well, Michael Jordan would be right? Because he worked hard for his position. People are exploiting basketball. People make money from shoes and whatever games and whatever other ways they make money. Advertisements, whatever. Okay, and there's rich, arrogant people who make lots of money, who own the team, who basically put their nose up at everybody, so to speak, right? What have you. So you see, there's a pre-existing sort of general conception in regards to race and the racial order. There are people who would complain that black people, in their minds, have too much representation among celebrities, that they're seen as too cool. Okay? So what is fair? Should every race be seen as equally cool? Or should we do it based on where God and nature put people fair and square, with a consideration of sabotage? Right? Black people have been extremely sabotaged. There'll be a lot more cool celebrities who are black if they weren't so sabotaged. In fact, we'd actually have valid black leaders, and I'm a valid black leader, other than myself, if they weren't so extremely sabotaged. So you see how deep this question goes. So let's solve this question, shall we? Point number 2. The truth is that the racial competition between those who felt they were competing, again, between those who felt they were competing, is over. And one racist spectrum went beyond others in reality. It ended due to technology, controlled and unnatural breeding, cheating, and generational ill-gotten gains. Okay, so the racial competition is over. Now what were we competing with? For, who takes over the world, or, who is more moral than who looks better than who gets everyone to kiss their behind? What was the competition, right? In the first place, right? Why is the word race like the word rape? What was the competition in the first place? Now pay close attention. Moral victories are the only true victories, and twisting Christianity to make one seem moral just makes an individual or groups more immoral. So the only way to truly win that competition is to be more moral than the other group. Who invented the most things? Who cares? Who took over the world in a very ruthless and evil way? Who cares? That works against them. Who gets people to pretend that they look better than other people? Who cares? Who, after you sabotage the masses of indigenous people, ends up seeming more healthy or has more money? That's not so important. What is important is who is more moral than who, with a universal scale. Not moral in the eyes of Adolf Hitler or something, but universal morality. No racial supremacist, should be able to use some kind of racial scale to argue what's more moral than what. They should tell the truth universally. Because of technology, including artificial intelligence, cheating, and ill-gotten breeding, in the future, there's no way for someone to honor their race in a way that surpasses the existing moral order of races. And that's part of identity. Well, who are black people? Who are white people? Who are, Asian people? Who are, what are the subgroups? This is part of who we are. In the name of not trying to sound racist, should we deny who we are? And should we not give people credit? My goodness, should you not give Martin Luther King his credit? Should you not give me my credit? Because you don't want people to say, hey, the spectrum of black people, where it matters most, went beyond, the highest part of the spectrum, went beyond every other group. Now, there's an overwhelming amount of evidence, for those of you who don't understand martial arts, there's an overwhelming amount of evidence that that's the case. For those of you who do, that must be the case, because of my countless videos about why I'm the top martial artist ever, and the wordplay for Kuro Obi meaning black belt, and where martial arts comes from, and so on and so forth. Now, part of being a man, or if you're a female, being a woman, is having the courage and the heart to accept this as true. How many of you, when you were younger and they said Jesus was a Jew in their story, were you like, no, that's not fair, because that makes the Jews seem important? So now what kind of people are mad about this? Certain types of Jews are mad. They're racial supremacists. They feel like everyone's kissing their ass, and they don't want to admit that black people went beyond them morally, universally speaking. Not necessarily in their interpretation, again, in their interpretation of their story, but universally speaking. There's certain white supremacists who believe that, their master race or whatever. And they don't want people to think this way. There's certain kind of communists who want everyone to sleep with everybody. There's, hippies and people who aren't very sharp and aren't very smart. Okay, they might be cool and friendly and nice to hang out with, and they don't want people to believe that one racist spectrum goes beyond the others, and they don't want people to think about the implications, okay? But they're all wrong. Their side of the debate is laughable. Some kind of drugged up hippie on acid saying everyone's equal, okay? Some kind of white supremacist, some kind of Jew, that's the side of the debate that you're on? One or the other all at the same time? It's stupid. You see what I'm saying? I'm not going to end this video here. I've proved my point 1,000,000 times over. And again, I'm not racist. If you think that I'm racist, make your case. If I truly believe you're right, then I'll take this video down. But it is just the truth. Point number 3. This is what I call the take me to your leader effect. If your race is led by people who act like childish, selfish psychopaths, like an LGBT person dressed like a baby throwing a fit, again, that specific type of person, and they ruin the world more than everyone else, they sink lower, faster than all the other races. So you can't say, well, we took over the world. Remember, many white supremacists have been saying this forever and ever. They said, but my race took over the world, so therefore we must be superior. And some people even argue that God chose them to take over the world. Did Jesus, in their story, many of these white supremacists are Christians, did he bow to the Romans and say, hey, you took over the world, you're superior, and you're magically chosen? No, he did not say that. He said those who obey the commandments of God are above everyone else, right? The one who's from above is above all. John 3:31. He did not say the one who pushes everyone around and takes their stuff and takes their land is above everyone. That's called being a thief. That's called being a psychopath. That I came, I saw, I conquered bullshit. Because it's that secular bullshit. When God does it, okay. But when the oppressor does it, no. How do you know the difference? You know them by their fruits. If you need to explain more than that, then you are not very smart. I'll tell you that. For example, everyone knows that the 3 neocolonial groups ruined the world more than everyone else. Only around $300 billion of the $6.6 billion or so that America spends each year in its racist system goes to welfare. The people would say, well, you people never work and you're lazy. Most black adults are employed. So what the hell are you talking about? We'll get to that. So everyone knows it's a racist system. They say things like it's a dog-eat-dog system and it's run by white Jews and LGBT people, right? They say it's not who you know, it's who you blow. It's not what you know, it's who you blow. And it's not what you know, it's who you know, and stuff like this. And there's nepotism and favoritism and racism and people sleeping with their bosses. Okay, so that's not a good measure of superiority. Okay. So only around $300 billion of the $6.6 trillion or so that America spends each year in its racist system goes to welfare. Most black people, most Hispanic people, they're employed. And it's a racist system. There's favoritism, there's nepotism, what have you. America still goes over its, budget $1.7 trillion every year. Every year, $1.7 trillion. Who's it governed by? If the people that are governing America are the master fucking race, then what the fuck is the least superior race? The most inferior race. What the fuck? And these people resort, the main people championing that argument, again, I'm not trying to offend anybody, the main people championing that argument resort to, so anyway, a police officer just rolled by here, so I had to kind of stop for a second. But the main people championing that argument resort to saying, well, there's a bunch of black people looking for handouts. 58% of the homeless people in San Diego are white. Okay? Now, again, they go over their budget $1.7 trillion every year. And it's white people who control the process. Behind the scenes in the government, a bunch of white people. A token minority here or there. So what? It's like citing, the black butler during slavery, right? During slavery in that form, sugar plantations, cotton, what have you. And saying, well, they're in on it too. That's stupid. In the wealthiest country in the world, you see basically the worst governance in the world. Basically. In terms of managing the economy, I mean, it is bad. And especially when we factor in that America is a developed nation. You're not a proxy nation, as far as anyone knows. You're a developed nation. You have the power to stand up to anybody who's trying to make you a proxy nation. You have this massive military. Why can't you manage your budget? Why can't you end homelessness? It only costs $100 billion. You go over 1.7 trillion every year. If one year you go over 1.8, so what? But then you turn around and say that you're superior. And if a minority argues that you're wrong and that maybe it's, the Martin Luther King types or something like this, you crack down on them and said either you are a Republican and say the white man is magically superior or the Jew or the LGBT, or you're a liberal and say everybody's equal, guys. Come on, guys. You see what I'm saying? So going back to point number one, when one asks someone if they think that their race is superior, it is actually more of a complicated question than society often pretends that it is. And to not be precise enough and to not tell the truth, the pure truth, mind you, is a problem. But I'm trying to tell the pure truth to the best of my ability, which is all you can kind of expect for someone to do. Go the distance. Tell the truth to the best of your ability. If there's any minor mistakes that don't change the premise, they're honest minor mistakes and not malicious or dishonest ones. Okay. So the countless whites with their Jewish and LGBT allies and social clubs and token minorities ruined the economy, yet countless white people blame black people in popular culture. I am not racist, but this argument is key, and people not behaving as if they understand this was one of the main things that ruin dating. If you live in a society that plays dumb about those things past a certain point, newsflash, the dating sucks. Hi, I'm a token minority bitch. Hi, I'm a racist white person. Right, that's not exactly a strong dating culture that's respectable and produces decent families. Think about it. An example of this is a person might say, you are like a black person, therefore I will not allow you to date my daughter. Okay, the word you are like. Well, who the fuck's oppressing you? A homeless black guy across the country? Some of these people that live in a suburb. Okay, very few black people. How the fuck they're oppressing you? The people who are governing them aren't hiring more police officers. They're not balancing the budget. They're not ending homelessness. They're not winning the war on drugs. They're not building rehabs with vice taxes. That's your fucking problem, buddy. Wake up and smell the coffee. And then most black people are employed. So what the fuck is your problem? Okay, instead of saying you are like an oppressor or some bitch playing stupid about how things work, so I will not allow such a coward, especially one who helps prey on the poor, to date my daughter. So again, let's read this again. So instead of saying you are like an oppressor or some bitch playing stupid about how things work, so I will not allow such a coward, especially one who helps prey on the poor, to date my daughter. That's what they should be saying. This helped create the 50% divorce rate and the countless pathetic marriages that we see because only a dumb couple throws away their chance at true love and instead feeds into the evil system. I'm going to have to make this a part 2, but the next 2 points are very key.